Okay, so in this video we're going to hand code some navigation buttons, which I've already put on the form, and also show the cake picture, which will require a little bit of code behind the scenes. So I think before I begin, let me just mention here that there are some cake pictures which I have copied into my solutions debug folder. So you can see the cakes there, and those are the pictures that we're going to display as we move through the data set. So I think what I'll do is I'm going to delete my binding navigator because I'm going to have the hand-coded buttons, and I'd like to replace this in a later video with a search bar. So I'm going to just delete that, and it's gone, okay? So these are pretty easy to code. We'll use the binding source methods to add code behind the scenes here. So this is the one to move to the first record. I'm just going to double click that, and then if you're ever wondering what your binding source name is, that is in the component tray. So this is cake binding source that we're using. So we're going to say cake binding source, and that'll come up in your IntelliSense. And so we'll do move first on that one. Don't forget your parentheses. So I'm going to do the same for the rest of them. This one is move previous. Okay, again, being careful to go through the front end so my buttons are wired up properly. Okay, and then one more. Okay, so I'll test those. Okay, moving through the data set pretty easily. Now let's deal with the picture. Okay, so what I'll do is I'm going to code the binding source current changed event. I double clicked on the binding source in the component tray, and this is the default event, the current changed. And that makes sense because every time I land on a new record, this event is going to fire, okay? And that's when I want to change the picture. If I've landed on a new record, I want to display the new picture. So what we can do is capture the picture name in the underlying database into a string variable. So I'm going to create a string variable, maybe call it pic name, okay? And you can easily reach into the data set. The data set is a table, and we can actually use array notation. If I go into Cake's data set tables, and within there, we're looking at the cake table, so you can name your table in the square brackets there, and then within that table I want to drill down into the rows, and here I would have to provide a row number. Now I don't know what row the user is on, but my binding source knows, so we can reach into the binding source and access the position property, which is actually the row number on which the user has landed. So there's that, and then from there, so now I'm like right where I need to be, and then I need to, like row-wise, and then I have to provide the column name within that data set, and this is in the underlying data table. It is called pic name in there as well, and then I do believe I have to put a toString on that. Okay, so after all that, it's really just us drilling down into the data table and the data set and getting into the correct row, and within that row into the correct column, and grabbing that value out of there. So the pic name is going to be, you know, for example, redvelvet.jpg or germanchocolate.jpg. Whatever the name of the picture is going to end up in my pic name variable. So from there, it's pretty easy. One thing I do like to do is make sure that the picture name is not null, because if it is null, then you're going to throw an exception. So I'll just do a quick check, and I'll make sure pic name is not equal to null. Okay, and then If it's not equal to null, we're just going to, there's PIC cake is the name of the picture box on the form, so we'll say PIC cake. Now we're home free. The image is going to be equal to, we'll create image dot from file, which we've done many times, and that would be pic name. Now this is going to work. This is going to work because those pictures are in the debug folder. If you don't have your pictures in the debug folder, you're going to throw a file not found exception when you run. Okay, so let's test this. Okay, so there's our red velvet moving through the data set and displaying the cakes.